what I've always said is that when you're bored, that's the signal to go out and create and do something. That's fuel right there that you can either pour that fuel, on a forest fire, or you can, put it in your jet engine, and it's your choice. And sometimes
Wow.
most of the time, it just gets dispersed everywhere like a fire hose that's out of control.
Good afternoon, Joey. How are you doing this lovely afternoon?
Good afternoon, Dan. I think this is the first time we've done one of these in the afternoon.
I know. I think so too, because I realized that it's the afternoon because I was kind of sleepy after my workout and I laid down and I took a little nap. And now
Ah,
I'm coming out of the post nap from, I mean, it was a while ago already, but you know how that is. It's a little bit hard to
is
shake.
that why you look a little concerned today?
Yes, it's the
Yes.
concern for the leftover nap that's still there. No, actually, what I'm happy about is that I had a problem with my computer here where my one big screen, which has the HDMI plugged into it where the audio comes from, has been like flickering. Like it's not the thing. Like it's literally like it looks like a 1980s sci-fi movie. It like does like this, and it's a giant
Fantastic.
screen. So it makes me go bonkers. And so I can't have it like that. And so I think I did actually solve the problem because it was plugged in through a splitter and I took the splitter out and now it works fine.
Technology.
Good news. Good
Oh,
news.
fantastic.
Let's see. Let's review. You got anything interesting on your algorithms today?
Let's see today. Let's see. I haven't opened it in a while. I bet you it's a bunch of Met Gala stuff.
Yes. Good guess.
I bet you it's a bunch of Met Gala. So here we go. There's a horse saving a kitten from something, and a very lovely man is talking about it.
I haven't had Taco Bell in 7 years.
So,
We're
so
talking
is it
about
the
Taco
horse,
Bell.
the kitten, or the man?
No,
Is
the
that why the
horse
algorithm
was saving
says-
the kitten. Right.
Oh, okay.
The man might have been the algorithm.
Why did they give that to you? Which of those three things was it that was the attraction? Was
Absolutely
it the horse?
nothing about, well, he was quite attractive. And I don't think I've been watching a bunch of like cowboy rural stuff. No, I have no idea why I got that because I'm not, a particularly like, let's watch kittens or anything. Nana fighting for her life after a wedding party. So it's a drunk Nana. I don't know where that came from. And accidents doing parkour.
Wow,
Yeah,
interesting.
I don't know why any of this is my algorithm today. Because to be honest, like I said, all I've been watching is Met Gala stuff. So I have no idea why any of that has come. I wonder if I've been talking about anything with friends recently that would have. I can't think of anything that my phone would have been listening to.
Drunk grandma conversations.
Drunk
something like
grandma.
that?
I'm not clicking on anything with that. Cowboy stuff. I'm not. Well, I've been watching some Yellowstone trailers.
Amazing.
That's probably
That
it.
that could be it. Now
Yeah.
they're showing you all cowboy stuff.
Yeah. How about you?
Okay, so my algorithm seems to have changed too a lot, and it's actually not for the better. It's all pretty boring. So the one is I get a lot of these like green building and like manufactured like building houses instead of like a stick build. You build them in a factory, blah blah blah, which I
Uh-huh.
find is interesting. But I don't want to have like an entire thing of that. I mean, so there's like that's kind of like what that one
Yes.
is. You get
Kind of
uh,
like the tiny house thing. Yeah, like the
yeah,
pod
exactly. All that
house
stuff.
thing. Yeah.
I'm interested, but I don't want to watch like a whole list of that stuff. Then I got this kid who's hilarious. I think he's autistic, and then he like just does different things. Like apparently he's doing like a big Lego set or something right now. So
All
shout
right.
out to that kid. He's
Sure.
pretty funny. I like him. And then of course dad jokes. Uh, which is here. I'll just let this one play. Let's see if because I think you could just do it visually. How to how to tell if your car's been in an accident.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
There you
That's a
go.
dad. Yeah. There you go.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
You've been doing a lot of dad jokes lately? Where did that come from?
Apparently, yeah. That you subscribe to one thing once, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you want that now? Like
But
here you
here's the
go.
thing. I'm not even a big subscriber. I
You're a
don't.
lingerer. If you
Is that
linger,
it? Is that maybe I'm lingering a bit on things I'm not aware of because I don't
there's
subscribe. I've subscribed to a lot of friends,
yeah, yeah,
but I can't think of things that I'm actively like, yes, I want to make sure that comes up. I don't subscribe a whole
yeah.
lot.
There's times where I'll actually back up and look at something because I'll scroll past and I'll be like, oh wait, what was that? Just like out of curiosity, I missed it or I
Yeah.
looked away or something. I'm gonna scroll back. And when I scrolled back, I was like, oh no, I scrolled back.
That counts,
Now I
right?
think,
The scroll back
yeah,
counts? Yeah.
it counts as like oh, it stopped his attention. So that means if we show more of that, I don't know. It's
It's
just,
so tricksy.
yeah,
That's how
it's
they
not
get
good.
you.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, should we check with Kelly?
I would love to check in with dear Kelly.
Kelly's here. Grab your shades. It's a wild, weird Florida day.
I am.
Hello,
Just to chime
friends.
in, I heard your conversation. I just want to chime in on something. So Dan messes up my algorithm because he sends me funny reels that are funny, but they're also not at all what I normally would send myself. We talked about this,
Oh, yes.
the jiggling bakers and stuff like that. But then also at night we'll be in bed and we're scrolling, and I'm a cat video girl. So like that sort of the horse saving the kitten would come up because of the cat hashtag, right? But I'll scroll past ones that I'm not interested in, and Dan will be like, no, 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 no. What was that? What was that? And he'll mess up my algorithm because I linger on stuff that I wouldn't normally linger, and then I have to like retrain it. So it's
Yeah.
a linger. The linger makes a difference.
And part of the reason I do that is because Kelly can read as it's coming by. Like she
Yeah.
doesn't have to slow down. I have to stop it in order to read it because otherwise I don't read that fast.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
read
part
very
of it.
quickly, so I can just kind of be like, nah, nah, nah. And I also
And
I read the first few and I know.
And
Not
you
interested.
glean it, right. I was
glean
not
it.
taking into account the reels that people send me. My father sends me about 40 a day. So that's probably influencing
I would
something there.
assume that
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of
So what
whatever.
that means that you could be malicious about it with people. Like if you want to change their algorithm, you just start sending them all these things.
Don't
And as
put
long
that
as they click,
negativity out into the
right?
world, Dan. There's too much already.
Right. I'm gonna think of something, Joey. I'm gonna take control of your algorithm by sending you these different. You're like, here's some.
Awesome.
Hell.
All right.
Kels, what's going on in Palm Beach?
Okay. All right. So these are the exciting things. I've got 3 interesting ones. First off, Flotopia chaos, fights, gunfire, and multiple arrests near Peanut Island. Hundreds of boats and thousands of people packed the waters near Peanut Island for Flotopia this past weekend. This was a couple weekends ago. But the massive unsanctioned party ended in arguments, fistfights, and gunfire. It was awesome. Trivia's Brown said. Everybody was getting along. It was a good time. Good time. Todd Eckerman echoed the sentiment, noting it was the busiest I've seen in 20 years of visiting Peanut Island. But the atmosphere turned dangerous by nightfall as boaters tried to return to shore. There's always a disagreement at the boat docks, Brown says. He took a video of fights breaking out and captured the moment a shot was fired, but believing that was probably to disperse the crowd. Palm Beach County sheriffs confirmed they responded to the unrest, stating multiple fistfights, shots may have been fired, but no shooting victim was located. Just an unruly crowd. So there you go. So
I feel like there's a limited series here, sort of like the Outer Banks, but Peanut Island.
Peanut Island, Peanut Island it's a snorkel spot, right? It's it's off the coast, so you can't really, you get to it by boat or like there's a ferry. It's not super far. You technically probably could swim if you really wanted to, but it's a pretty busy channel. You don't really want to be a swimmer out there. And then there's a sandbar right by it. So what'll happen is all the boaters will come and they'll beach their boats, and then you're in the sandbar, and at low tide, it's visible, and then like you can see sea urchins and whatever. So it's actually kind of a party thing, and then people get together and then just get smashed and I guess get rowdy. So
Fantastic.
I
Let's
also
do it.
I also like how it just a matter of factly said that there was a shot fired, but it was probably just to disperse the crowd. Like it was the cops that did it, right? Like they were
Yeah.
just like, you don't hear all you guys.
it's okay, no biggie, no biggie. So, and then the guy who attended Flotopia still plans to attend Boca Bash, which is the same idea but bigger, but down in Boca. They have a
Fantastic.
sheriff's station at the dock. So there you go. There you go. And that happened. I think Boca Bash already happened. There's one. Second one, same idea. Police say high five led to late night knife chase on Clematis Street. This is an interesting one. So a man identified as Christopher Jones was walking east on Clematis Street early Saturday morning, giving passerbys high fives when he gave one to Jeffrey Morant, 39, who was sitting in front of Clematis Social. Morant, I think, who is homeless, police said Morant was armed with a pocket knife and began yelling at and chasing Jones. Morant told officers that he had told Jones to stay back, but Jones gave him a high five anyway. And then he started to feel weird and believed that Jones had exposed him to a chemical substance. And then I guess the cops drew their gun on the homeless guy and he backed off. So who's at fault there? Is it crazy homeless man with the knife, or is it the guy who gave him a high five when he told him, don't give me a high five?
Uh, I tend to say when I have expressed my personal autonomy and said, don't do this thing, and you do it anyway, you're going to get a knee in the nuts. Like that's my feeling.
Technically, if it was clear that he didn't want that high five and the guy gave him the high five anyway, that would technically be assault that he started it. So,
What do you
right?
think,
So then
Kels?
Well, I think the dude who's giving high fives is like, don't be giving high fives. And he's probably drunk. It was 2 a.m. You're a drunk idiot giving high fives to people. But you know what? If the crazy homeless man, because there's lots of crazy homeless guys on Clematis. Clematis is like the gauntlet for crazy homeless people, right? God bless. That's a whole nother question, but they kind of fall into generally they're stabby bums, or they're yelly bums. There's one lady who's a throwy bum, so you gotta kind of like you gotta know your audience. But yeah, don't be giving it to some random dude if he's got like erratic element.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm that's there. So there you go.
you're trying to be politically correct in your
I'm trying to be
response.
politically correct in my thing, but like but he was being charged. Morant, who is the guy with the knife, is being charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon without intent to kill. I don't know. I kind of feel like that's unfair.
Yes, but again, legally. So the first guy assault, right? But without a weapon. And then the other guy raised it by introducing a weapon into it. So they technically could have probably arrested both guys, and charged the one guy with assault and the other guy with what they did with the weapon.
Okay.
So if he didn't raise the weapon, if he just was like, even if he just went back and slapped the other guy, that could have been self-defense.
Self-defense
There you
from
go.
positivity.
Florida have stand your ground rules,
It does. They do, right?
but does that
yeah,
protect
yeah.
personhood or property?
What do you mean? Like if somebody was gonna like try to take your property, you can.
It's
You
trying to
not-
break into your house. You can shoot them because they are breaking into your property.
Because you're in the house. If you're out of the house and somebody's just like messing with your car, you can't shoot them.
So it's property. It's property, not personhood.
You can't.
So no, it's personhood, not property.
other
I
way.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, somebody for stealing your stuff.
So then by the transitive property, if this guy was protecting himself, if he felt threatened
This guy
and was I'm pulling out a knife because I feel threatened right now.
Yes. Well, that's where it's a little bit tricky. Yes, if he thought that if a reasonable person thought that the high five was a threat of great bodily injury.
Well, he
then
thought
yes.
he was not. He thought the guy put something on his hand, but I mean, he was obviously. I mean,
It's all very
right.
messy,
Okay,
yeah.
So that's a fair point. If he thought that
he's
he
not
was
unreasonable. It's not reasonable though.
yeah.
Just, I'm curious because Florida's rules seem a little bit stricter about, hey, if I feel threatened, I'm going to do something about it. But in this situation, it seems like they're like, you can't pull a knife. Like, I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying? It seems
in the morning.
You can't pull a knife to a fist fight, I guess would be a good way to say it. Like
But if the guy tried to high five him and high fived him, the other guy, the bum guy, the homeless guy, would have been okay to.
Wow. We could spend the whole hour on my questions about the stand your ground rules, though. We should maybe move on.
All right. Well, you know what? So I'm all right. The last one that I had today is actually, this is kind of, I guess I'm on a theme because it's only the Flotopia was kind of funny, and maybe the fist fight leading to a knife. I don't know. But this one's an interesting, and just an interesting question. So this is the headline is, man faces felony charges for creating explicit AI image of teen coworker at a Boca Country Club.
Jeez,
49-year-old Thomas Christopher Ball of Broward County is facing felony charges after investigators say he used AI, artificial intelligence, to create an explicit image of a teen coworker and then threatened her. According to the reports, Ball and the teen both work at this country club. Investigators say Ball followed the teen on social media platforms and began sending inappropriate messages. Harassment, totally harassment. Faces felony charges. So then, days after the teen distanced herself at work, he continued contacting her online and eventually sent an AI-generated explicit photo of her nude created from images from years ago when she was younger, and then threatened to expose her if she continued ignoring him. Days later, a friend of Ball which is the dude, called 911 saying he allegedly came to her home looking for a firearm to shoot the girl who got him fired. So the girl got him fired. He was arrested last Friday and faces 3 felony charges, including altered sexual depiction of an identifiable person, sending harmful material to a minor, and unlawful use of a two-way communications device. I'm surprised they didn't get him on child pornography.
I was just going to
Oh,
say
yeah.
there should have been more. Yes.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. Yeah. You'd think.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so that was kind of an interesting sort of thing. So, but why I picked that one up, aside from the fact that it's just like crazy dude,
Bonkers.
another crazy
Yeah.
dude, but it's interesting that concept of people using AI to create blackmailable material.
And then
Yeah.
how much can the law stick to it? If it's like, well, I wasn't technically creating, it wasn't actually child pornography, it was an AI image. So like, even though I still think that's disgusting, please do not take that out of context. But where do we start? This is why AI
Yep.
scares me. These are the
Yep.
things that I get terrified about.
I think we discovered a new segment today on our Palm Beach News, which would be Peanut Gallery Legal Review, where we just talk about legal things that we don't have no
You
idea
need
what we're
Joe
talking
Coso.
about.
Come on, Joe Coso has to come
Oh,
on and
Joe,
do a
yeah.
legal review.
I think we just call it Joey Questions Everything. That's
Joey
the
Questions
segment. And
That's what
I
it
always
is.
Yep.
devil's advocate something in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it's interesting. Side notes. Okay, I do community theater, and one of the places that I do community theater local is the Lake Worth Playhouse in Lake Worth Beach, Florida. And one of the shows that they're doing next year is kind of about like that question of if it's AI, if it's virtual, and it's child inappropriate related something, right? What's the line on that?
Yeah.
Because it's not real. But I mean, that particular one, of course, is an example. Obviously, there was a crime committed because the intent behind it, right?
Absolutely.
And not to say that the intent is ever great, but it's just an interesting that as we kind of move into the AI world, that is kind of an interesting. You can't define every single instance. I
Because
guess that's the
yeah,
idea of precedent. Like, that's why people
Yeah.
define it as you go along and then you refer to precedent. But I don't know. Apparently we need a legal advisor on this one.
all right, Joe Coso.
There you go. I mean, there's other ones, but those are the most interesting ones. So
Cool.
there you
Those
go.
are
Just
good
a
ones.
friend.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Kelly.
Bye.
Bye. All right. There we go. And I guess with that, we can lead right into Moses. He's probably going to have some interesting things to say after that.
Moses
Palm Beach
Morales.
News.
Looking forward to what he has to say about it.
Hey, Moses.
Hey,
There we go.
Moses, did you hear all of that?
unfortunately, no.
Ah!
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I heard it all. Yeah, that was terrible. I didn't quite know how to understand what precedent you're trying to set for me coming on here with that kind of news. I'm like, and
Yeah.
here we go.
It can
A
only go
prime
up from
example.
here.
Cool. So Moses, so you and I went for a walk as we do sometimes the other day, and we talked about all sorts of things. And just for the people who are kind of listening to this, Moses and I have known each other for at least 4 or 5 years now, whatever it's been. We've seen each other and hung out sometimes. We've also let great time pass between those hangouts. But every time we get together, we always have interesting and philosophical conversations. So that's our connection. So what were some of the things that we talked about that you wanted to kind of move us forward with today?
Well, I mean, we kind of reunited, I guess, because I started making these philosophical pieces, and it seemed to resonate with you as I found out more that, you have more of a philosophical background than I first realized when we first started chatting, which was quite intriguing that I found out, also through exploring some of your past pieces prior to this one. And I mean, there was so many topics that we were able to dive
Yeah.
into.
So why did you start making these videos and these talks as they are? Like what was the impetus behind that?
So a big part of why I started this, I suppose, was that I had a lot of life experiences. I'm a bit of an underdog, I guess you could call me, where I was probably not supposed to be where I am today based on the trajectory I started out in. And through and
Are you
through,
comfortable talking about any of that?
I can share to some degree,
Just
sure.
yeah, a little bit of it.
Well, I mean, I was there was my childhood was a bit rough. So there was a lot of fighting over me, and um a lot of moving, I'll just
Mm,
say,
gotcha. Yeah, that's
where I had
traumatic. Yeah.
a lot of different situations where I was moving every year at times, and not for any kind of military purpose. So, and through that, I met a lot of very interesting people from all sorts of different backgrounds and cultures. So I always was very open to whomever it may be that I would interact with. And one common thread I found in general was that people were suffering and were very insecure about a lot of different things. And not only that, uh, I would say that society has created these walls around a lot of us that many people feel the urge to break out of. And those would be probably, I'm kind of speaking in a metaphorical sense here. And so through creating multiple companies as well and being an entrepreneur for quite a few years now, and I was um, so, through my childhood, I started becoming an artist. So let me back it up a little bit before I go into that entrepreneurship. And so I had this desire, I suppose, to express myself about social conditions. Some of the first paintings I was making at 14 years old were paintings that had to do with slavery in the Virgin Islands, where I was, and it was kind of a bizarre topic for a 14, 15-year-old kid to be interested in. So I just always noticed this aspect of people basically judging one another for unreal reasons. And I suppose that a big part of why I decided to make the videos was that I just noticed that I had a lot of guidance that I could um, share with the world, that it seemed as though many people were overlooking it in some way or another. And um, and for me, it felt like just another day, but it wasn't the case. And I just noticed that it was a message of clarity. And so within clarity, you have a new responsibility to um, carry on the way that you've been traveling, or step up to the plate and really be accountable for the decisions and the behaviors and the lifestyle and whatever it may be, and deal with those consequences. And so I think, but the whole thing has, it's like, it's comical and it's tragic at the same time. So it felt like the perfect kind of content, and just kind of sprung out from within me. So I was just like, let me make this stuff. I had some very interesting circumstances that happened in the last few years leading up to this point, that I decided, I really need to speak out, because a level of blindness that's going on, it really needs to be addressed. Because as an entrepreneur, you really notice when any kind of system or company is on a path towards destruction. And so and I guess that kind of alludes back to the clarity thing. And so that's kind of a bit of how I started those videos.
Yeah. And what's the response been like? If you think, do you get people responding online? I assume you get people like responding in person. What's that been like? Have people responded positively, negatively? What's that
Yeah, I
like?
would say there's an overwhelming positive response, but it comes with what I would like to call trolls,
Mm.
all seated within there. And it's kind of funny, because a lot of what I talk about is calling out this type of behavior within humans. It's been going on for, ever since people were able to throw stones, pretty much this type of thing has been happening. And there's always been someone trying to rock the boat in an unsavory way. And and the sad part about that is that usually that person ends up leading the whole lot of the people because they're just willing to speak out. And then
Mm.
the people who actually seem to have real discernment and ability to, I guess, help the group, I guess that would be better to say, like a smaller, situation, tend to be quieter. And because they in their soul, they kind of understand that if they do that, they're making themselves a target for these bully type figures. And
Right.
so that's kind of, it became very inspirational for me because like it only got greater and greater in my life as time went on. But I noticed it the whole time. But I just wanted to kind of give people who were getting crushed hope that, they're not alone,
Yeah.
essentially. And yeah.
Right. Yeah. You reminded me, the idea of the leader, the reluctant leader, or the people that should
Uh-huh.
be the leader are the ones that stay quiet. So,
Hmm.
Plato's Republic is about that, right? So, like, that comes up there across all sorts of philosophy over thousands of years. So it's interesting that must be, it's a human nature thing, I guess. I guess the people that are maybe, I don't want to say that all, like, anyone who's willing to speak up is, I guess the point is you're sacrificing something when you're willing to take leadership, or you're willing to put an idea forward. You're automatically also sacrificing something for yourself. And you have to be willing to do that, especially based on whatever the topic is, right? And probably the bigger the topic, or the larger the um community you're speaking to, the higher risk it is.
The greater the vulnerability.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
And it seems to
Exactly.
me that when we're talking about trolls, and we're talking about people who are actual people, not bots. These are people that, and this is going to sound more altruistic than I mean it. These are people who are deeply insecure and deeply hurting, and this is how they get it out. I don't comment on a whole lot of posts unless they're, friends, and it's like, great job, friend. Like, I think that I'm a relatively secure person, and I don't need to get anger out in such
Right.
a sloppy updash way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that troll culture, it has a culture of trolls, like the way that people behave when they're in that mode. You're right, Joey, that it seems like to spend that kind of time and energy on that activity is naturally, it's like it's junk food, right? And you're like consuming junk food emotionally, if that's kind of like your daily
Well, and these
routine
are
as
not people out in the world, right? These are people in their basements you don't have a whole lot else going on. These are not people who are engaging somehow in the world. And I know that's very difficult for a lot of people. I get that. But I know a lot of people who are agoraphobic. I know some people who have extreme shyness, and they don't react in ways like that. They find other outlets for um, discomfort or vulnerability instead of attacking.
right.
I don't know. Again, that sounds more altruistic than I am. Usually I'm quite angry with those kinds of people.
Yeah, I would find that maybe that's the wrong analogy for the type of energy that comes out, because I think it's broader than that, and you also will find that it's seated in even like good people at times, or what you would perceive as good people. Like there's certain energies that we carry that can bring us down paths that maybe aren't the most fruitful. At for instance, your mind, for instance, it can create a completely beautiful, fruitful existence, or it can create a very dark and dreary one. And whichever you decide it can start building on that, and it becomes a freight train within whichever existence you decide to embody. And so that's kind of a big essence to why I wanted to back us up a little bit on the whole troll talk, because a lot of people kind of perceive it as these people who are just cyber attacking, or, they just leave nasty comments, but they're not out in the public. Well, I would say that that's not the case.
Hmm.
I,
Interesting.
I would, yeah,
Can I summarize real quick? So what your point is that it's for lack of a better explanation, it's a spectrum of trollness. The trollness that we all think of is the troll in the basement who just doesn't leave the house, and that's like their whole life is just being a dick online. But your point is that any of us can kind of flip in and out of that mode if we don't, based on if we control our minds or not. If we want to create a positive world or in our mind, or if we want to create a negative world in our mind, we get to choose which we live in.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, a lot of these things kind of allude to, I would say a big part of, my studies has been within, um, Nagamati texts. And, I find that that was one of the most pivotal moments in my life when I realized that all of these other religions that were formed were anthologies, and these guys in with big sticks made the rules, and basically um, they beat down the real um, essence of what I think humans are meant to embody for the sake of materialistic um, reason, I guess you could call it, or just greed or power. Those are two topics I tend to juggle with. Not as much greed, but definitely power, because a lot of the things I also notice in society is that there's these interesting power struggles, even within relationships and modern dating, and just small interactions where there's an overwhelming sense that people are not looking for partnerships anymore, that they're actually looking for somebody to dominate.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I've just noticed this impetus more and more, because it comes across as we're all kind of empowered now, and we all have the capacity to do as we please, for the most part, being in this country especially. um, but yeah, I noticed this on a very kind of subtle interaction level, and it's something I like to bring to the surface, because I see how, our society, for instance, is just having a lot less children, for instance, because relationships are ripped apart because of these weird power struggle dynamics that seem to keep finding their way into everyday life.
Joy,
Do you do any dating counseling?
It's probably not a bad idea.
Curious, is this your own experience, or is this like experience you're hearing about or reading about?
I would say it's a combination of all of the above. I would say that I'm very attuned and attentive to what's going on outside of myself. And I just kind of see the habits of what's working and what's not working very quickly. Um, and I would say this is a very common trend that I've noticed, at least in the vast majority of, what I'm seeing people struggling with. I have quite a few friends in their 20s, early 20s too, and I see like a lot of their struggles, that very thing. And what the most bizarre part about it is that I would say that there's like an overwhelming sense of rewarding mediocrity and tearing down excellence, funny enough, which is weird. Like, unless the excellence is far separated from you in some way, like it's completely on a whole nother level planet, then that's different. But if it's like, your friend that you knew from high school or whatever, like, people will find a million ways to tear that person to shreds and not be able to believe that they could grow out of the person that they remembered
Mm.
from however many years ago,
Hmm.
which I find to be very disheartening at times. But
Right.
and I think it's something that just needed to have attention called to it because it's like nobody's saying anything about it, but it's
Right.
happening. And so, because I myself have seen, the very thing happen to others, and I've seen it in, my own life at times as well.
What do you think has fostered that scenario, that cultural shift? Or, you talk about the kids that are in their 20s and that they're facing these types of issues. Why, where did it come from?
Where did the dynamic come from?
Well, yeah, because it seems to be, I mean, it seems to be historically changed. It's different than it was 2 generations ago. Not to say that that was 100% right either, but where does this, what we're dealing with now, coming from?
I would say a big part of it is probably people misunderstanding what purpose even means. I think is a big part of it. I think when the internet was introduced to us, especially, we have these survival brains that are accustomed to, you know, um, much less, notifications, I'll say. And these notifications create this fight or flight response in us. And there's this overwhelming sense of tension that's being embodied. And as a byproduct of that, um, people have a harder time concentrating on one thing, and then it kind of just has a trickle down effect, I find, in every like facet of like the things that they do and the things that they find important. And so yeah, I would say that purpose has a big part to do with it. I don't
I
know.
think I
What do
think
you
just
think?
just to add on to that, I think people are also terrified of the permanence of the internet. And I think people are taking far fewer risks because everything is recorded now. And if I say the wrong thing or make a fool of myself or go out on a limb and it doesn't quite go the way I wanted, I'm seen as a failure and it's out there forever. I think people are, uh, like you were just saying, Moses, that extraordinary is rewarded less than mediocrity. I think people are less willing to take chances because they're afraid that the failure is out there forever. I feel very lucky to have grown up at a time where I failed quite a lot, like before the internet was ever available. It was trial and error. What works for me? What doesn't work for me? And I don't have all of my mistakes following me now at this age. I think that's
It's
part of it
interesting
too.
that when you talk about trial and error and like working through failure to get to success or to learn something or to, whatever, figure something out. That's literally how life works. But you're right, when you're recording all of it, and then also, again, algorithms, they push the finished product up to the top. Like nobody sees the 20 years of failure. They only see the vacation, the
Right.
Corvette, all the things that people think are valuable. They miss the underlying story. So while all of us individually are going through those step by step little failures, little growth moments, which are at best ignored, right? Because otherwise, if they're not ignored, you're being ridiculed, basically, is the only other option. There's not a lot of internet world that is basically like, good try, you go after
Right.
it again, like
Right.
that doesn't happen often. So, and then it sounds like from what Moses you're saying is that dynamic of, you use the word dominate is then being applied to all aspects of life, including one-on-one personal relationships and everything in between. Because it's always like you're either the victor who's already like you're already there, or you're the loser who isn't there yet, or maybe not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can completely agree with a lot of that. I got very comfortable with, I guess you could call it failure from being an artist in the beginning, just being like, okay, here's my thing. Okay, yeah, 90% of you either don't get it or don't like it, but the 10% who do, they are like enamored with it and they want to know everything about it and all that. So I think that kind of alludes back to, what you seed grows again, the same sort of situation. Like, I would be trying to swallow the idea that fear is the main reason why that's happening. I think there's a lot of validity to that actually. Yeah.
Do you think also that there's a certain resistance in our human brains. You said earlier about how we have this like kind of, you didn't use this word, but this is I think what you meant. You have this kind of the monkey brain, you know, the historic evolutionary brain, which expects the world to be a particular way, and in our modern world, it's not that way. So when we
Yeah.
live in a world of of abundance, then our brain kind of malfunctions. You know, just the fact that, for example, abundance, if you want to just keep it at its very chemical level, the amount of dopamine we get, right, by design from these different apps and things like that is something our is in abundance, right? Because normally we would have to go off and chase that dopamine as a monkey thousands of years ago. We'd have to do a lot of work to get just even a little taste. And now it's like completely overwhelming. And
Hmm.
so it's the fact that our brains are not really adapted to be doing what we're doing now, and then that creates all these downstream effects of malfunction, essentially, in relationships and society, in the way that we see the world. Right, the fact that I've actually been practicing this a lot over the last, I'd say, couple years, and I feel like I've gotten. I don't want to. I've gotten pretty good at it. I don't want to say like I'm an expert or anything like that, but I've gotten pretty good at when things are going well or not going well. I'm very much been practicing being like, it is what it is. Like there's a little bit of a like, when I get bad news about something, I think to myself, you know what? That news was already on its way before I knew about it. And I was in one mood before I knew about it. And now I know about it. So like, what's the difference? It was already heading towards, it was just,
Hmm.
it was on its path to me anyway. So why am I going to, now that I know of it, change my behavior or change my outlook because of this thing? It's just news. It's not bad news. It's not good news. It's just news. Um, and I've been really trying to practice that to not to trigger those fight or flight or like, you know, aggressive responses to information, because that information is reality and it was happening that way anyway. So now let's just move forward from that point. I don't know.
Yeah. I, I mean, and I think there's a ton of great ways to transmute that energy and be able to say, okay, this is how I'm going to not only have this new form of existence, but I'm not going to let it own me, which I think is a part of, I think that kind of alludes back to this whole thing about dominance we started talking about, because in reality, I think that our subconscious feels like we are being dominated literally by this, little glowing box in our hands.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so, as a byproduct of that, we are now reacting to and triggered by that very glowing box. And now it's finding a way to be able to say, okay, what am I going to do with all this? Because, I need, and I think that y- that's, I think, why creativity is so important. And also, boredom is also really important.
Yes.
Well, like, I think that being able to be bored and is actually because this was probably one of the foremost issues I had in my childhood, was not knowing how to deal with boredom, because I went down the pot realm as a result of it, because I didn't personally know why I was feeling this thing, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I was asking, okay, I'm bored. Okay, go read a book, whatever. Back then it was in the 90s, it was different. But now um, it's it's even more important, because everybody's, or not everybody, a lot of people who are in quote unquote modern society are, they are dealing with boredom constantly by scrolling. And the scrolling then creates this um, myopic sense of belonging and purpose. And then that then transmutes into something generally not as productive a lot of the time, because we're living, because then you're living, basically you're not celebrating the other people's lives that you're seeing. You're actually just imagining yourself as if you were having that, and probably more than not, people are feeling envy towards that person more than like um admiration. And and so and that whole experience of just kind of not being okay with being bored, or what I've always said is that when you're bored, that's the signal to go out and create and do something. Not it's that's the moment where you're supposed to that's fuel right there that you can either pour that fuel, on a forest fire, or you can, put it in your jet engine, and it's your choice. And sometimes
Wow.
it gets most of the time it just gets dispersed everywhere like a fire hose that's out of control. So, and but yeah, at least that's been my take on it. At least
Yeah.
as we're speaking now, that kind of came to me. So
Yeah. I think you're right on. Boredom is a skill at this point to be able to be bored. And boredom is also a luxury, which we don't take advantage of, right? Like if you're in a position where you can be bored, right? Our ancestors were probably, I don't know, maybe they were bored. Maybe if they had their food in that exact moment, they were bored for the next 4 hours until they had to go find food again. Maybe that's I don't know. I don't want to,
But there's
don't
always
need to
predators.
speculate.
There's always something
Yeah,
to be
exactly. Yeah, they're
concerned
always,
about.
yeah, or
Right.
here comes the rain. Yeah, like that's no good. So like for us to be bored in a nice warm house that we can just sit there with nothing on our minds other than, hey, I'm looking for something to do. You're 100% right. You can either then consume and shut down your mind because that's what scrolling is. Your mind is not participating in anything other than just being sort of shut down, or you take that boredom and you harness it and you do something, you create something, right? I would imagine that the ratio of consumption to creation, if you somehow tracked it on a chart as time has gone by, is widening, right? Like the amount of consumption of human population is probably going way, way, way up, and the creation as a percentage is probably going down because it's so easy to not be bored. It's so easy to not create and just consume.
yeah, I mean, I think that that's another part of all this that's interesting, because if I've seen on some other, videos online, when I actually look at it, I rarely ever do actually. I have no idea what this thing called boredom is at all, by the way. I have no idea what you guys are going through because I sure don't have it. Because I got about a list of 50 things to do right now that I wish were done and they're never, there's never enough hours in the day. I'm up till 12 at night. Most nights, unfortunately, I'm looking to make it like 10 soon, hopefully. And I will. I'm nearly done building a tremendous system that is going to help me go to bed at 10. So, and that's my goal. I really would like to be in that warm, cozy, weighted blanket with
I love a weighted
fuzzy.
blanket.
Yeah, yeah, and just the fuzzy Uggs would be good with it. Any, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's partially why I say these things too, is because as a business owner, I think that more of what people need is to believe in themselves more, and also go out there and start building and stop whining. And so like that part, because I don't know, I just don't have time for it anymore. That's I'm
Yeah.
very, very particular with where I spend my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, I think that Dan and I definitely on our walks probably had a few things to say about that. um
Yeah.
but
Joey,
Moses, will you tell us just a little bit about the Moses clarity?
so yeah, that was a result of uh what we're talking about here. Was I had plenty of experiences where I felt as though it was a transcendent experience. And because I was always seeking throughout my entire life for more knowledge
Mm.
and more of answers, and I was essentially a byproduct of that search. And this kind of alludes back to a lot of what some of the most profound ancient texts have talked about that have been pushed away from modern literature for the most part. Um, and I saw it happen within my own life. And and so I created this. It's basically the voice of my other company, Creation Genie. So Creation Genie is kind of the playhouse for those looking to step into greater awareness. And the Moses Clarity is essentially the voice of that, or the voice that's coming through. Um, and it kind of goes back to the aspect of clarity again, what clarity really is. Because I've always valued it, but I've also just noticed in the relationships you form throughout life, sometimes it can be that the clarity you're receiving is not what you thought it was. And so I'm trying to put words to that, what that is and what it means to have clarity for whomever wants to hear that message.
Do you work with individuals, with companies? How do you get that out there? How do you get the word out there?
Well, what I've found is that Creation Genie became a foundation to help artists improve their artwork,
Oh, I
actually,
love that. I love.
and essentially for them to kind of see from a new perspective on how they can make the work what they've always wanted it to be. But then through and through this, I realized that it was much bigger than that. And it became more about even just what your brand is, or what you'd like to call your brand, or what you're putting out into the world as your staple. And a lot of the time what I find is that a lot of brands can develop in such a way that it's just kind of like a people kind of just allow it to occur rather than being deliberate with it.
Mm, mm.
And backing it up and really asking themselves, what is the meaning behind what I'm trying to say here? But I think there's also this overwhelming lack of anyone that can be trustworthy enough to be able to move forward with that. And I think that that's something that we're having to live through as a society now. We have to bring back trust, and essentially being able to find an outlet for that. But I realized I could flip through any, well, I'm almost saying yellow pages. That dates me. But I was going to say, any Google, ad for any type of company, you name it. And I can sit here and I can just pick out any company, and I could see probably a laundry list of ways that they could be a little more effective.
Mm.
And it could be as simple as just the way that their logo looks. It could be the way that they show up in the world. A lot of this has to do with sort of dissolving fear, dissolving a need for validation, and dissolving a feeling of insecurity. And I think that that's a big part of what I found that the Moses Clarity does. Is it's the voice for that, and then Creation Genie is just the platform for that person to kind of evolve in, or at least where because what I find also through all this journey is that people generally don't want to buy from people; they want to buy from a brand,
Mm.
basically. Like they because what it ends up feeling like to them is that if they buy from a person, then all their biases about people start to come up within their subconscious. And and so but for the longest time, I think, a lot of companies use their name in their branding, but I
Mm.
think that the vast majority of the time that's a mistake, because all they're doing is just following the crowd of what other people did before, and that isn't working anymore. So you've got to find a new vision, a new voice, a way to get out in the world. And so that's what that became, and that's what it is.
Yeah. Cool. Cool.
Fantastic. So,
Awesome.
Moses, people can find you at the Moses Clarity on Instagram,
Y-
correct?
Yep. Yeah, they can.
And at creationgenie.co on Instagram.
Yep. And those are, and then the company I made, which is the working example of what Creation Genie can do, is Placidity. Placidity Incorporated is the company that is the overarching company, and I'm building specialized companies within that. Right now, I'm working on Placidity Pro Painting, and I'm creating all these tremendous systems for that company, which you can find us in Palm Beach County at the moment. So
Fantastic. Before we let you go, did you paint that behind you?
I did not.
You did not.
No.
It's a lovely
but
painting.
It felt like, I was emerging out of fire and brimstone, so it was perfect. No,
I love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks,
Yeah.
Moses. It's always good to see you. I'm happy to see you in
Likewise.
real life. Happy to see you online. So I'm glad you're here with us.
Yeah,
Nice
thank you
talking
so
with
much.
you, Moses.
It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. Have a
Good
great
to see you, buddy. Awesome. Well, there you go.
Awesome. You
That's
know
Moses. So
the
next time
loveliest
you're-
people, Dan. You
I know, next time
you
you're
do
down
walks
here-
with lots of wonderful people.
Yep. We can meet Moses in real life when you're here next.
Yeah, that'd be
So
lovely.
You're right around the corner. Cool. Well, this was a good one. I enjoyed the afternoon podcast recording.
It's interesting. The afternoon is a different energy. And
It's
you
a little
actually made me
different.
feel a lot better. We started this, I was not in a good mood, and I'm in a much better mood.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I guess performance will do that sometimes, right? When you get out or
That's right.
creation, I should say. When
There you
create
go.
something,
Creation.
you're right up. to tie it in.
Collaboration. Yeah.
Collaboration. Cool. Well, thank you, Joey. It's good to see
Thank
you.
you, sweet friend.
See you next time.
Till next time.